reported that it went up in flames, and really it didn't go up in flames. It was just a fire, and we wanted to get an update from him.
Well, hopefully we can get him on.
So if he strolls in, it's crazy out there. Maybe he's stuck in traffic like you were.
Well, maybe he's busy working at his place.
Hopefully everybody's busy. John, how are you doing? John Cassani from Calusa Waterkeeper.
Hey guys, good morning. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming in.
You are the Waterkeeper, right?
The Waterkeeper.
Since what is that? December 2016? Is that when you?
Right. Yeah, you guys did your homework.
Well, one of us always does.
She does her homework. So, John, first explain what Calusa Waterkeeper is and means.
Yeah, basically we're a clean water advocacy organization, and we fly under the flag of the Waterkeeper Alliance. So we, as Kim was saying, we were a full member organization of the Alliance in 2016, and so they set some standards for us, and we try to comply with those standards. We are a membership organization, so if you're interested in supporting what we do, you can become a member, and that helps us. So just throw out that crass commercial message right up front.
No, and we'll make sure to get all that information on how people can do that before you go. Wait
a second. You're going to make sure that we get all that information out?
Yeah, because you're kind of off today. So I am going to have to really keep track of things.
Thank you.
What does a Waterkeeper do, and what does the organization do?
Yeah, so my role as a Waterkeeper, I wear a lot of different hats. You know, I engage policymakers. We do policy reform issues. We do outreach education. We train volunteers to monitor the water, you know, to do some testing, and they take that information and it empowers the advocacy that we do. So if we have some factual information on why we're doing or concerned about clean water, that really helps.
And how did you, what is your experience in your background that led you into this position?
So personally, I've been here in Southwest Florida since 1978. Wow. And I've been the Waterkeeper for about almost 5 years, going on 5 years. And I moved down from Michigan in 78, and my background is in aquatic sciences. I'm an aquatic ecologist, and I went to college in Michigan and moved down here working for local government as a water resource manager back then, and kind of been doing that ever since. So
when you say Waterkeeper, do you actually have water like in your backyard that you keep and test and the whole thing?
Here we go.
Yeah, man, water is life. Water is our world, and everywhere I go, it seems like there's a water issue of some sort. And I think being right here on Fort Myers Beach, an island surrounded by water, is just a classic example of how important water is. It's, you know, it affects the economy, affects our public health. So yeah, water's the thing. It's the thread that ties it all together.
So John, let me ask you a dumb question. Why is it so difficult to keep the water clean? What is the problem with it just seems like it's so complicated that we can't keep the water clean?
Well, to me, it is pretty straightforward. I think, you know, in a nutshell, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, you know, growth is overwhelming our region. We have about 12,000 people moving to Lee County every year. That's twice the population of Fort Myers Beach every single year. So you can do some restoration projects and you can spend some taxpayer money doing those things. But if you don't have regulations, if you don't have enforcement, if you don't have a land use policy that addresses that growth, it's going to be one step forward, one step back. So you're not going to make the progress you need to make. And that's what people are seeing. They're finally seeing that water quality's really not improving. It's in some cases, it's actually getting worse, even though we're spending more money, taxpayer money, trying to restore the condition.
Having been here for a long period of time and watching things change, is there a point that you can sort of put your finger on where it really started getting not good, or has it just been a slow kind of deterioration, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's a great question, Kim. I think that people ask the same question over and over. You know, when did the tide turn on water in Florida? My observation over about the past 4 decades is about the last 10 to 12 years, we really began to see a serious decline. And after the economy, after the Great Recession, growth just exploded again. And, local businesses, they see that is good, but what comes with that is these associated water quality problems.
Would you say Lee County is doing a good job in addressing the water quality or not?
You're referring to Lee County government?
Yes, of course. Yep.
Okay. Well, we just finished a study that looks at water quality impairment in Lee County. The number of water bodies that become verified impaired increased 36% since 2018. So in 3 years, we're seeing a big jump in water quality impairment. Lee County's doing some good projects, but the bottom line is it's not enough. We're not doing enough to stem that tide that's related to this explosive growth that's coming to the region.
What could they do specifically to address the water as they grow? Everywhere. It seems like they're growing everywhere.
Yeah.
What do you want them to do?
Yeah, great question. And I wish I had a black and white answer, but to me, it's, getting your comprehensive plan a little more rigorous, establishing a future land use map that draws some boundaries of where, we don't want sprawl. Sprawl is really killing water quality in Lee County. And I remember driving south on I-75 back in the late 70s. You couldn't see any development east of I-75. Now it's a city east of I-75. So you've got to be able to control and have some degree of smart growth that manages that explosive growth.
So explain why the growth is affecting the water in a negative way.
So one of the straightforward things that we can tie to growth and water quality is roads, rooftops, sidewalks, parking lots. What brings the pollution to the receiving water is rainfall. Prior to all this urban development, more of that rainfall infiltrated into the ground. Now it runs off more directly and in higher volumes to these receiving waters. So it's the conveyance system that brings the pollutants from the urban landscape into the receiving water. And that's a big part of the problem. Fort Myers Beach has done some good stuff. They have a pervious parking lot at the library. Those are the kinds of things we need to be doing more of.
What does that mean? Tell people.
That means the rainwater can infiltrate into the ground rather than run off into the Gulf or Estero Bay. My big concern right now is if you've been watching what happened in Biscayne Bay this past summer, complete disaster.
What happened?
We had a fish kill that lasted for weeks and weeks. And I mean a massive fish kill.
From what?
It's from low dissolved oxygen that's driven by nutrient pollution. Same thing's happening to Estero Bay right now. So Estero Bay, the state declared Estero Bay verified impaired for nutrient pollution 2 years ago. And I got a bad feeling that might be something that's coming in the future. I hope not. We're working to try to avoid it, but that's something we need to keep an eye on.
The tributaries and stuff that feed the bay there, and that's where it's coming from. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the watershed for Estero Bay is Bonita Springs, it's Estero, it's unincorporated Lee County. And all those tributaries are designated as outstanding Florida waters. They're supposed to have the highest protection the state can provide. Every one of those tributaries now has some verified impairment, mostly for fecal bacteria and nutrients.
So fecal bacteria, sewage, and all of that goes with it. What can local people do? What can the state do in transferring? Because we've had people talk about this before, like septic to sewer. What can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's the next question that always comes when we start talking about fecal bacteria. And so the problem overall is these local governments have not invested adequately in their sewage infrastructure. They're too old. The capacity, they're exceeding capacity or approaching capacity. So it puts a lot of stress on the system. If there's a leak in the conveyance system or a lift station doesn't work, it's polluting these waters with raw sewage. And we're just seeing too much of that. And so we're trying to build some stakeholder groups to address that issue. And I think your next speaker, Jim, is a councilman here in Fort Myers Beach, might be talking about that as well.
Right. So overall, what is your assessment of how local governments and the governor and the state legislature are doing to deal with the water issue? I mean, without water down here, we've got nothing.
Yeah. So if you look at the net change, if you look at all the factors that are affecting water quality, we're not doing good. It's getting worse in many areas than better. And what you're seeing other communities do, there's going to this right to clean water initiative. It brings a constitutional right to the waters to not be polluted. Orange County just voted for this referendum. They had an 89% plurality supporting the right to clean water. So what that does is it amends the city or the county charter in a way that gives more legal power to the people to protect these waters. Venice is looking at it. City of Sarasota is looking at it. Naples is looking at it. So people are fed up. They want clean water. Businesses need clean water. And it's important to our public health. So.
Got a question from the live studio audience at home. Where does the human waste go to on the island? Do you know that question? Answer?
Well, I don't think there's too many septic tanks on Fort Myers Beach.
And there's 18 left on Sanibel from what we hear.
There's a few left, but not many. So the main wastewater conveyance system is the wastewater treatment plant and all the underground pipes that go to the wastewater treatment plant. So if you've got leaky pipes or if you've got spills frequently, that's the contamination that results from those problems with the infrastructure conveyance.
So the manatee issue of the last few days has been off the charts. I mean, what the hell's going on with the manatee? What are you guys doing killing all these manatee, John?
Yeah, I did a special Words from the Waterkeeper episode on this last month.
Wait, first of all, tell us what that is so everybody knows.
Yeah, about twice a month, I do a little video session, and we call it Words from the Waterkeeper. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, but it's really about some serious topics. And last month, we talked about manatee mortality. The mortality rate in January of this year is like 4 or 5 times the average over the January of the last 5 years. Something's going on with manatees right now. This mortality's carried over into February, and it's not looking good at all. So if it continues at this rate, we're going to see a big hunk of the manatee population expire in 2020, and we don't want that.
Have they documented what's causing the? Is it boat strikes?
Great question.
No, it's not.
Question.
Well, it's not boat strikes. If you did your research, you know it's the lack of it's the lack of food in the water.
Answer.
Ed, yeah, that's right, Ed. I think
great answer.
Good answer. Good answer.
Perfect answer. But here's the problem. The state's not doing necropsies on most of them. 70% aren't being necropsied, so we don't know why they're dying. And the answer to that is COVID. You know, the staff that do the necropsies, apparently they have a policy that says you can't do them necropsies if you have this COVID policy. So, you know, I'm not sure I'm buying all of that, but it is a growing problem. We need to be keeping an eye on it.
And what contributes to the lack of food that the manatees?
That's my favorite question of the morning, actually. Kim,
I'm crushing it today.
It gets back to this systemic problem with increasing water quality problems. The water is less transparent. There's less seagrass growing because there's not enough light to get to the seagrass. There's less food for manatees. And that's the problem in the estuary of the Calusa Waterkeep. So manatees have to swim from the Orange River all the way out to the Gulf or the San Carlos Bay to get grass. So that's a 25-mile, you know, that's a long way to go without avoiding a boat the entire way.
And those things weigh so much. It's not like they can swim fast, right? No. They're slow swimmers. It take them forever, 25 miles.
And I'm sure that's a lot of energy for them to expend than to get food and load up again.
Yeah, it's really sad. You know, the manatee population has actually increased over the last 10 or 12 years. It's actually recovered to a degree, but they're still vulnerable. You know, they delisted them from endangered to threatened about 4 years ago. So everybody was complaining about that. Hey, they're still vulnerable. And now we're seeing a perfect example where we get these cold spells and declining water qualities threatening the species again. So we need to pay attention to what's happening with these.
Now, I wanted to ask, so, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I did my last minute research. The Senate Bill 712, that is an environmental bill, correct? Okay. Did that go far enough? Are we headed in the right direction with that kind of legislature?
Yeah, it's positive. It's a step in the right direction, but what it's not accounting for the degree of growth, the degree the landscape is changing, and the water quality that results from that massive change. So yes, on paper it looks like, yeah, we're doing good things, but it's not comprehensive enough, and it's not, the funding isn't adequate. You know, we hear about the Everglades a lot, but there's a lot more waters in Florida other than the Everglades, and that's what's getting left behind as a result of the Senate Bill 712. There's also a Blue-Green Algae Task Force.
Yep.
We have some issues with the task force. You know, they said they were going to develop defensible standards for cyanotoxins. They don't seem to be interested in doing that now. So those are some of the details coming out of the Senate Bill 712 that are not terribly encouraging. So we're keeping an eye on it, and we're trying to, that's what we do at Waterkeeper. We're trying to push the policy in the right direction to bring the most bang for the buck to the water.
So, John, there's your organization, there's Captains for Clean Water, there's this task force, there's Southwest Florida Water Management, there's this and that and the other thing. For the average person, or for people like me, below average, who do they know how to trust, and who do they know who's not politically motivated, and who do they know is not getting some bucks put in their back pocket? How the hell do you know who to go with here? Because, you know, if Red Tide shows up, nobody gives a shit about any organization. They only care about you guys crapped in our water.
Well, there's a lot of noise in the narrative now, and it's hard for people to kind of sort through that noise and try to figure out what's the right message. And so what we've done is taken a pretty conservative approach. You know, we pride ourselves on being science-based, fact-based. And when we go on social media, I'm almost always providing some water quality data or public health data to support what we're trying to say. It's not that the others don't. It's just, you know, I can only speak for ourselves, and we take pride in that. And we've received a couple of awards the last couple of years. We were the Nonprofit of the Year in Lee County in 2020. We were the Daughters of the American Revolution chapter Conservationist of the Year in 2020. And so a lot of people recognize that we make sense when we talk about water quality, and they've recognized it and acknowledged that with these recognitions lately. So we're humble, but we're really proud of the recognition that we've gotten over the past year or so.
So what do you want the average person, or in my case, the below average person, to do to stay involved or get involved in the water situation to keep the pressure on? I know Jim in the next half hour is going to tell us some things that folks can do to get in touch with their elected officials. But what else could they do? Not wash their roofs or yell at the county for so much growth? Or how do they get involved?
Yeah, Ed, you're all over this. I mean, you know it, and your questions really tell us how much you know about this issue. So, great question. Jim's going to come on and talk about what Fort Myers Beach can do, what the community here can do, and maybe even beyond that. And so it's about holding your elected officials accountable, and that's a big part of what I think Jim's going to be talking about. So, you know, these people that are doing these, these campaign, not campaign, but these policy forums, it's really important. People need to go to those, pay attention to those. And, you know, it's a troubling times with these deceptive narratives that are out there now.
Who's the most deceptive in your mind, so that people can avoid it?
I'm only half deceptive. So
Who's fully deceptive? Anybody? Anybody that we should avoid?
No, okay. I think all the conservation groups are, you know, they work on a shoestring budget. They're doing all they can. We work together in many respects. But where the deception comes in is from the political narrative. And that's where you're finding that our elected officials aren't just representing you. They're representing disproportionately some special interest groups. And that's what's deceptive from my point of view. Well,
and I think that we've talked about this before, you know, that the adage follow the money is, you know, plays a part, that you have to look into where campaign finance
takes too much
coming
time.
From.
Takes too much time for the average person to dig into that.
Right. And that's the issue.
I mean, that's super important. I mean, when you dig in and look at, and you discover the information for yourself, to me, that's a revelation. You know, you trust yourself, obviously. And when you read and see and understand that this is potentially a problem, to me, that sticks with you. And so I encourage people to do that. The internet's a powerful tool. Social media is a powerful tool. You can use it to your advantage.
So grade the governor. A being the best, F being the
Well,
worst.
it was A to start with after his executive order, but the legislature's muddied the picture a little bit. You know, you're going to hear that we're spending a lot of your taxpayer money,
$400 million or
things,
something.
but when I see water quality impairment get increased 36% in Lee County since 2018, something's not working. So it's going to take a while, but the trends that we're seeing now are not encouraging.
Grade is what? What's the governor's grade?
I'm back down to about a C right now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So-
I'm kind of in the middle now because I'm in the legislature. I think the legislature is the bigger problem, and I don't know how you disconnect the same party that's in the executive branch from the legislature.
Adam Botana, is he, oh, you're laughing.
No, I just laughing at myself a little bit, just trying to address these kind of troubling issues. It's you can never explain it all in a 2-minute soundbite kind of thing. But
okay, so how can people get in touch with you, follow you, watch your, what'd you call them, the Calusa Minutes?
We call our volunteers the Rangers. We do a Ranger Academy. We're going to start another academy next month. So if you're interested, go to our website, Facebook page, and sign up for the academy. I think Adam, but you mentioned Adam, Representative Adam, and I think he's a boater. He's on the water a lot, so he knows the issues.
Right.
So we expect good things from Adam.
Yeah. Deliver, Adam. Deliver.
And there's also an Estero Bay. Didn't they just recently put out I was watching a video that was on the page about Estero Bay, and it's like an hour-long informational thing. It was
I'm so glad you brought that up. Our organization developed a documentary called Eternal Vigilance, and it will air on WGCU on April 22nd.
Very cool.
And we're super excited about it. It's all about Estero Bay and its tributaries. So please tune in, WGCU, April 22nd, Earth Day. So we'll be part of that celebration. Yeah.
Well, John, thanks so much for coming on. Anything we can do to help, please let us know to get the word out.
Anything else you want to include?
Anything?
Any other information you want to get out there?
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground, a lot to absorb. And I just want to say I appreciate the invite. Everybody here on the beach is great. And you guys are leaders down here. So thanks for doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I feel good about that. So, John, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for all the information you share with us.